Okay, well, everyone, it's Mother's Day, although I prefer the British term for Mother's Day, which is Mothering Day. It indicates it's a verb, it's an action, which is what motherhood is. But also, mothering means that we can, no matter if we have children or not, no matter your gender, you can mother, you can be in the act of mothering yourself. You can be in the act of mothering someone else. So each of us can be mothering. I want to also start with just acknowledging, I know that for some people, today can be hard. They may have a difficult relationship with their mom, something that they're going through with their mom or still working through. So I encourage you, if that applies to you, to think of another person who was nurturing to you, who was mothering to you. Maybe it's an aunt, maybe it was a grandmother, maybe it was a neighbor, a friend, a mentor, a teacher, because all of them can be mothering as well. So today is really, really about celebrating women and also the nurturing quality within each and every one of us. So we celebrate women, but we also celebrate that nurturing quality that is within each and every one of us. So we're finishing our series, as I've mentioned, This Life is Yours. And the last two chapters, it fit great because the last chapters share your story and inspire others. Right after, reinforce your wholeness. So when we share our stories, we have that opportunity to reinforce our wholeness, and how appropriate for this Mothering Day that we celebrate women and some of their inspiring stories. But first, I wanted to read this paragraph from the book from, again, Reverend Linda Martella-Whitsett and her daughter, Alicia Whitsett. Here's what they write. We all have a story to share. The stories you share of your courage and conviction, your resilience and optimism, your resourcefulness and creativity, you will inspire others. Moreover, as you share your story, you reinforce it. You inspire yourself. So every day, live fully and tell the story of your wholeness. As you know, if you've been here a while, I share often my stories of my health challenges or other life challenges. And I do that so that you don't feel alone. So you don't feel like you're the only one who's going through it. So that maybe there's a little glimmer of hope. And also maybe an idea or a possibility of a new practice or a spiritual tool or healing process, whether that's a physical challenge, a mental, emotional, spiritual. But in sharing our stories, what I've learned is it can inspire but also give hope to and encouragement to other people. I've been there. I know. I can understand. Because, see, we've been sharing stories through the beginning of time, right? Since we've been communicating with one another, we've been sharing stories. And the sharing of the stories help connect us to one another and remind us of our oneness. So since today is Mothering Day, I thought I would tell some stories of inspiring women that seems to fit in well. And the first one I wanted to start with was the grandmother of Unity. We don't often talk about her, Mary Fillmore. Here she is. The eldest one. I know they all look old. There's the Fillmore family. Mary Fillmore, or called Grandma Fillmore. So you see here's Charles, Myrtle and Charles, and their three sons, Lowell, Rick, and Royal. And then Grandma Fillmore was always there. Now, she raised Charles Fillmore. She raised him and his brother as a single mom in the 1800s. They lived in a log cabin in Minnesota where the winters got below 40 degrees. And the only heat source was the fireplace, was the fire that they built in the log cabin. She was hardy. She was strong. They said in the book of the history of Unity that, you know, there was trappers and traders going through. It was almost like a Huckleberry Finn type of existence. So she was a strong woman. And I can remember my early 30s, early 40s, when I just started to take some of the Unity classes for credit. At that time, starting to go towards certification as a certified spiritual educator with Unity. And so I had 2 young boys and all their activities, and I was taking these classes. At certain points, I was working maybe, a day or 2 a week also. And I remember sitting down with Reverend Molly, my minister at the time. And I was the youth director too. So I was the youth director. So I was there every Wednesday. And I remember sitting down with Molly and I said, how did Myrtle Fillmore do it? She raised 3 boys. She was running and expanding a national prayer ministry. She was creating a spiritual movement with her husband. How in the world did she do it? And I can remember clear as day, Molly sitting next to me and turning to me, and she said, Stacy, she had Grandma Fillmore. And in fact, when they moved to Unity Farm, which is now Unity Village, and I know Lynn's our new coordinator, he's like a Unity buff here, so you'll have to confirm this story for me, Lynn's. But the story goes that when they moved to Unity Farm, now Unity Village, they built a house for the Fillmores, Charles, Myrtle, and the 3 sons, and one for Grandma Fillmore. It was Grandma Fillmore's house that had the kitchen. Myrtle did not have a kitchen. This makes me respect Myrtle even more. What a fantastic idea. It was Grandma Fillmore who was helping watch the boys, who was cooking all the meals. She was the one that helped Myrtle and Charles, but Myrtle, since we're talking particularly about women today, Myrtle do her work that she was here to do. It was because of Grandma Fillmore that Myrtle could fulfill her purpose. So it's such a good reminder to us caretakers. Again, whether you're caretaking for children or parents or a neighbor, we can't do it alone. We need a support system. We need each other. That's why community is so important. So that reminder that, sometimes, and again, sometimes I look at these movie stars or whoever, famous folks, and I'm like, how do they do it all? And then I remember, oh, right, they've got their people, right? We all need our people. So Grandma Fillmore was that for Myrtle and Charles. So then I went down a little bit of a rabbit hole, because then I thought, well, who was the mother of America? Who is the mother of the United States? And the great news is, everybody, is that there were quite a few names that came up. I love that, because oftentimes, as you may or may not know, women get left out of history. So I was very excited that there was quite a few names that popped up. And in one list, 8, and there was 3 that really stood out to me. So the first one being Abigail Adams. Of course, she lived between 1744 and 1818, and she was the wife and first lady to the second president, John Adams. But I love this. She wrote a letter to her husband on the cusp of the U.S. independence, advocating for more rights for women. Yay, I know. I heard the yay. Yes. Can you imagine? Hey, more rights for women. She believed that women should have, are you ready for this? It's a quote. More say in the decisions of the household rather than just being caretakers. Yeah, that's what she was fighting for. Wow. But even more so, historians say that she really was an advisor to her husband. And also she continued throughout her lifetime for equal education for women and for, this is a good one too, women's property rights throughout her lifetime. She advocated for that. So if you own a home or a car and you're a woman, guess what? Thank you, Abigail Adams. Yeah. But it's that reminder that what's important to you will be important to other people. That what's important to you will have a trickle effect, right? That ripple in the water. That as you go forth with your passion and purpose, it affects other people. Hundreds of years later. Another one I found as far as when I looked up mothers of the United States. Does anyone know the name Deborah Sampson? I wish I had a picture of her. So Deborah Sampson lived between 1760 and 1827. She's known as the hero of the American Revolution because she disguised herself as a man in order to serve with the Patriot forces. She went on to become the only woman to receive a military pension for her services in the Revolutionary Army, and the first woman to go on a national lecture tour of the United States. She set the course in motion for women to serve in the military all the way back in 1781. It took quite a few decades later, but she planted the seed. How inspiring. And so the question for my own self was, wow, what can I do that's maybe both scary and brave that would push my growing edge, that would push my comfort level? What could I do that would just help me grow that much more and do something that would make a point, make a difference, right? And then last, as far as the mothers of the United States, I went to Elizabeth Schuyler Hamilton. Of course, if you've seen the play Hamilton, you know her. She lived between 1757 and 1854, and she was, of course, the wife of founding father and Treasury Secretary Alexander Hamilton. Can't say that without singing the song now, right? But her legacy, and this is what I loved when I heard this story, but her legacy was that she was the founder of the Orphan Asylum Society, which was New York City's first orphanage. I can't even think of a world without an orphanage. Like, where did kids without parents go? In the street. So it was Elizabeth Hamilton, Eliza, that opened New York City's first orphanage, and she started the Hamilton Free School, which provided free education to low-income children. And she did both of these to honor her husband, because her husband grew up as an orphan and also could not afford an education without the help of others. And so it was in his honor, and it's because of her commitment to it that these programs have grown to today. So again, being inspired and asking, who is someone important to you, and how can you honor them? How can you be inspired by something that they did or experienced so that you can create a change in the world? How can you assist in honoring their legacy? That's what that inspirational story says to me. Okay, let's skip to more modern history, everybody. 2015 is the year. I know, it's just like last year, right? Turns out it's like 8 years ago. And maybe you've heard this. I'd heard this story too. It's a woman named Sarah Cunningham from Oklahoma. Sarah Cunningham started the organization called Free Mom Hugs. Now, back in 2015, some of you know, she was a self-described devout Christian when her teenage son came out as gay, and she initially rejected him. And then she started sitting with the question, but why, if God makes everything perfect, why would God not make my son perfect? My son must be perfect too. And as she was sitting in that question, she overheard and saw this conversation happening outside her window. Her son and one of his friends had come over, and the friend had had self-harm, cutting on his arm, and was talking about being rejected from his own family because he was gay. And she said that actually, to see the self-harm and to hear that story is what really pushed her into action. And so she had a healing with her son, and she started in 2015 Free Mom Hugs. So at pride rallies and parades, which she usually organizes in Oklahoma, she gives hugs, and she says, I give hugs the way a mother should to anyone who needs one. And in 2018, she posted on social media that she would be a stand-in mom to anyone needing a mother at a same-sex wedding. This is how I first heard about her, because the response was overwhelming and caused other women to post the same, myself included. I said, I also will be a stand-in mom. And now I can officiate your wedding. I can do both. And she said it came at a cost. She lost some family and friends. But what was interesting, that some of them came back when they found themselves in similar situations. But she has traveled the country over these last 8 years to help shed shame and fear that parents whose children come out within that LGBTQ plus community. And she says, it makes my eyes water when I think of just the outpouring of love and community that is there. This is what it's all about. So do you see the wholeness, as we've been talking about wholeness and healing? Do you see that the wholeness was there within her, and yet she allowed this healing to happen with herself? And in doing that, she came into an even bigger understanding of her own wholeness. She embraced her wholeness. She embraced the inherent wholeness of her son and of herself. And in doing so, what happens is she continues to invite others to do the same, to have that same healing, to recognize the wholeness. I was reflecting then on my own family. Didn't have time to get their pictures, but just imagine they look something like that. Oh no, sorry, go back one. Yeah, there we go. Just pretend like this is like my Grandma Mary and my Grandma Liz, okay? So first, Grandma Mary. My Grandma Mary is my maternal grandmother, and she was always busy helping other people, always racing around. And the last few years of her life, she lived at a senior complex, and she was also racing around helping deliver meals. And I can remember visiting her, and she was about 82 at the time, and I think I was about 28, 29, and I went up the coast to visit her and my other grandmother. So I stayed with her for a day or so, and I was about to leave. I was saying goodbye. Thank you for this time together, And she was just too busy, because she was like, okay, I got to hurry. I got to get out of here because I got to go deliver meals to the old people. And I thought with my 28, 29-year-old mind, aren't you the old people? But see, she didn't see herself as old. And she saw herself as needing to continue to help others up until she couldn't anymore. She was always helping family and those in her neighborhood, her senior complex, up until the very end. She didn't claim the oldness. Then I have my Grandma Liz, who's my paternal grandmother, who really helped raise me for the first 10 years of my life. She was quite an influence on me until she moved up to Northern California when I was about 10. And yet there was times when I was an adult, when I had my young family, when something crazy would happen in the world, whether it was 9/11 or some other dictator doing something. And I would call her because I figured, she died in 2012 at the age of 96. And so I knew she had seen a lot. I knew she'd experienced a lot. And so I would call her. And sure enough, she was always calm. I'd be like, Grandma, what is going on? And she would just be calm and say, yeah, it's happened before. We tend not to learn. It will be okay. And then she always did a quick pivot to, how are your boys? Make sure you love those boys. Do you see the message there? The world can be falling apart. The world could be on fire. But what really, really matters is love. Put your focus on the love in front of you. That's what I learned from her. And then we go to my own mother. Yes, we'll go to that slide now. Some of you have met her. She was the Easter bunny here on Easter. That's us having drinks. I told the waiter not to put any alcohol in hers because she does not need it. So as I've said before, I was a very shy young girl. And so having a very outgoing, silly, animated mother, you can imagine she embarrassed me all the time. But also what it meant was she cheerleaded me through life. She cheerleaded me, my brother, my kids, my husband. She was at every game, softball, volleyball I did. Sometimes, most of the time, she was also a coach or a manager of that team. I was remembering when Juan was in his 20s, early 30s, he started to do a lot of writing for newspapers and different newsletters, and she gave him a scrapbook so he could start putting in what he had published in there. For my own kids, she was at every play, every game, every birthday. She's the one who taught me the importance of celebrating birthdays. Just making a person feel so, so special. How easy is it for us to make another person feel special and supported? And my friend Elena, my 20-something friend Elena, she saw that I had posted, "Hey, you have any mom stories?" And she said, "You know what? I have such wonderful memories of my mom sitting on the edge of my bed at the end of each day when I was in middle school and high school, listening to me talk about whatever drama was going on in my teen years. And she always knew just what to say. But more importantly, she listened. She just sat and listened and held my hand and let me know everything was going to be okay no matter what I shared with her." She said, "My mom lives on the East Coast now, so with the time difference, it's hard to connect at the end of the day. And I really miss these talks. I miss her sitting on the edge of my bed and listening." Listening. Holding a heart. Making someone feel special. Doing something that can help another person or group feel seen, feel important, and feel worthy. See, as we take inspiring action, we inspire others to do the same. In taking inspiring, but really it's heart-centered action, we embody our wholeness, our spiritual truth. All of us, female, male, non-binary, can embrace the action of mothering, of nurturing others, of nurturing self. And by doing so, we embrace our wholeness. And so today and any day that maybe you have painful or uncomfortable feelings that come up, just see them, acknowledge them, step into that healing process, because whatever comes up for you today or any day with feeling means that you're ready to release it. Maybe this much today, maybe this much next year or next week. But whatever comes up, it's there to be seen and acknowledged and released. So today we can honor those who did model forgiveness and unconditional love and nurturing. Whomever that was in your life, today we honor whoever did model forgiveness and unconditional love and nurturing. So the reminder for us today, practice being. I wrote a little note in the book. Have I been practicing being love? Have I been practicing being peace? Have I been practicing being compassion, being wisdom? Have I been practicing being in the flow? Have I been practicing being open to what wants to emerge? Have I been practicing being? Because when we practice being, we're practicing the art of mothering. When we practice being, we are expressing our wholeness. And so as we wrap up our series today, just remembering that healing happens right where you are, and that this life is yours. Blessings, everyone.